चिया खाने?
कहाँ खाने?
हिमाकोमा गफ गर्दै चिया खाम न त आज
हुन्छ ल जाम न त ल
जाम जाम
ल जाम जाम
This episode of Chiya Guff at Aussie is brought to you by Alliance Estate Agent. Get in touch with the team at Alliance if you are selling, buying, or want someone to manage your investment property. 910 Finance for your mortgage broking solutions from personalized home loan to business loan and much more. Let's talk number for any tax or accounting related advice and assistance. We also like to thank Mr. Knots and Coffee for their continuing support.
नमस्ते वेलकम टु चिया गफ एट अजमा आजको टपिक चाहिँ आज हाम्रो अलिकति फरक चाहिँ नभनौँ है किनभने हामीले अलरेडी माउन्ट एभरेस्ट डे मनाइसकेको थियौँ तिमीलाई याद छ कहिले मनाएको I'm asking you when is the Mount Everest day it was on May 29th
May 29th okay. I was about to say
Anyway, so हामीले चाहिँ नि माउन्ट एभरेस्ट डे चाहिँ नि हामीले फेन्काको टिमसँग हाम्रो भोला दाइसँग हामीले सानो डिस्कसन गरिसकेको थियौँ तर आजको हाम्रो गेस्ट चाहिँ नि एकदम स्पेसल छ होइन उहाँ चाहिँ नि माउन्ट एभरेस्ट अलरेडी क्लाइम्ब गरिसक्नु भएको छ and she is the mother of 4 kids.
That's right.
And then the second kid, Gabby, she is the youngest Australian to climb the Mount Everest. So very proud moments. Yeah, like, and yeah, so it's our honor and privilege to have you here. So it's Jane Kanizay.
Kanizay. Yes.
So welcome to Chiya Guff at Oz.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Very excited.
So
I was so excited to talk to you on the phone first time, and I was very taken back the way you were really like, oh Virat, I'm really excited to come. I love Nepalese people. I've been to Nepal, and within a second, you provided all the, your relationship with Mount Everest and going back to Nepal, and I was really, really, really excited. We couldn't do this a bit earlier, like as we planned. There was a bit of hiccups on our side, so apologies for that. But thanks for coming all the way along for this podcast. We really appreciate it.
That's okay. It's lovely to see some Nepalese people a little bit closer to home.
And actually, I forgot to mention, you are the portrait artist.
That's right. I paint as well.
I have seen your art, and it's so beautiful. It's so connected to Nepalese. Like you have like wedding guest, and there was like some portrait. It was like you take back to Nepal, like the Sherpas.
Yes. So that's something I love doing when I travel. Is I take watercolor and I paint, and then I'll often come home and create oil paintings from them. Yeah.
So yes, it's like
That's
great.
really
Yeah,
nice.
I think my first question I will ask you is that how you get inspired, like where all these things comes that one day you decide to climb the Mount Everest.
So the inspiration for climbing actually came from Gabby, so from my daughter.
Yeah.
So she was goal setting and set a goal to, one day I'd like to do that. And so we decided to go when she was just 15 to trek to Everest Base Camp. So I thought that would be it. That would be the mother and daughter trip of a lifetime. Tick that box. But she just loved it. She did it. It came really natural to her. And so we just sort of got this progressive plan of, let's see what happens if you climb 6,000 metres. And then we went back together and we tried to climb 7,000. So that was the first trip where we didn't get success. But that was more because of the mountain. It wasn't safe to climb that year. So we then still went back and did 8,000. And then we got to the point going, all right, we've done all the training. We'll sign up for an Everest expedition.
I think that's a very good parenting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because if my son would say, like, I want to climb Mount Everest, I was like, no. But I have to learn something from you.
Yeah. And there was quite a lot to it. There was a lot of times where I did question, am I doing the right thing?
Yeah.
Am I doing the right thing where I've got 4 kids and this is one? Just the safety element of it. And one thing that we could look back now and say was a silver lining was we were planning to go in 2020 when she was only 17 and didn't happen. So going at 19 made a big difference. So for me, she was a young adult by then, not still sort of under 18. And then she also felt more mature. So she found that she was just treated differently at base camp and by other climbers, and they respected the experience that she built.
I was a bit surprised too. I know the Nepalese culture, like when people kind of get that kind of achievement, like the youngest Australian to climb Mount Everest. their calendar would look busy for almost 1 or 2 years because they're going to be invited here, invited there, invited there. But now Gabby is somewhere studying, her courses, so she's not busy that usual. I just wanted to ask in a way that how do you feel about the attention was there for a short time, and now she's doing what she's doing, and then you guys have just moved on with your other jobs.
Yeah, so she actually went on and did a gap year straight away. So there was a little bit of press for that first week, but neither of us were at home, so I hadn't arrived back yet. And she then went on to Europe to have a gap year and did a little bit of climbing there. We did get a little guest spot at the Lokies on Monday night. So that was a bit of a, no, we didn't have a guest spot. They replayed she was on a TV show that won a Loki, and that was a little clip. So I went, well, I'll take that.
Yeah, well done. That's really nice. We missed
but
it.
she's really keen to get into uni, and I think at her age it's this balance between the mountains is such an extreme environment, and then she wants to be making sure she does continue her education and that she is with her peers, her age group as well. So there's not so many young people her age out there.
No,
so,
I know, totally get that.
So for her that's a balance, but she's going off to do some work guiding over winter with the company that we climbed with to help train the next people that want to climb.
Yeah. How do you feel to be a mom of, you are you climb Mount Everest yourself, but let's take focus on Gabby at the moment. How do you feel to be called a mom of a youngest Australian to climb Mount Everest in today's date? So she's the one of the youngest ones. So do people come and ask you, or do you recognize you, or do you have a bit of conversation? Do you get invited in things like just to give advice about parenting, or how to promote your kids about the resilience and all that bit? How is your life?
We've been approached by a few groups, so it was great to talk to another mother-daughter who wanted to speak about that whole mother-daughter experience. I actually like reading. It's mainly people who know me that recognise that. Can't walk down the street and people know who I am. I like talking about just finding your kids' own goals and what they are. And this clearly was a very extreme goal. I've got 4 kids and they have all very different goals. So I hope I can nurture all of them. But I came from a family that had, I'm one of 4 also. And there's 2 elite athletes amongst the 4 of us. I wasn't one of them. So we often joke that we were just trying to, with our parents going, hey, look at me, look at me. But I think as I watched in my siblings, this ability to, so I've got a sister who represented Australia, and that's actually what first took me to India and Nepal when she did her first international race. And then my brother went on to be an Olympian and a world champion. And so I think that showed me that all you need to say to your kids is, do your best. That's all our dad ever said to us. Do your best, you find your own goals. And that's that balance between keeping it safe and realistic, and then keeping a foot in the real world as well.
That's nice. Well said.
I want to go back back when the Gabby said first, I want to climb the Mount Everest. That was her dream, one of the bucket list. So the first day when she said, and how you felt, you have, because that's kids will say anything. That's what we think, But you have to mentally prepare. You have financially, physically, you have to be ready to say okay, I'm gonna do with you. How you prepare yourself.
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think it was a long process because it happened over a period of time. So when she first said it, I think the expectation was, oh, what a lovely goal. I'd love to do that too. I'd love to have $1 million. Whatever it is, As we were going through the process, because I was the one engaged with it and doing it with her, I had a background when I was quite young in scouting, so I loved being adventurous and outdoors. So for me, it took me back to being this younger, authentic self of who I used to be before I was a mum. So I was quite happy going on the journey too. But I think part of me just was waiting for the wheels to fall off and go, all right, we've had a red hot go. We got to this point. It's, beyond us, too expensive, too difficult, too challenging, too dangerous, expecting one of those things to happen. And no, she had a really strong aptitude for being at altitude. So I think if I felt she wasn't safe as well, I would have pulled out. It was usually the opposite, where she was looking out for me. Yeah, particularly in the last climb when we got to Everest.
Because I read that, I think you put the, what is that, oxygen
Yeah,
mask
the oxygen.
in a
I
different.
left it on too high on the night we were up at the highest camp, and and I had some hallucinations, and so that was really frightening for her to see her mum not in a, it could have gone on to be something worse. It wasn't, and our Sherpa team were really calm. So if there's one thing I constantly talk about is our Sherpa team. So we were supported the whole way in doing it. So Tandy climbed with Gabby, Pasung climbed with me, and then we had a supporting group of Kushung, Namgil and Lapka. And it's lovely to actually stay in touch with all of them. So they got the flow back, changed the oxygen bottle over, everything was fine. Yeah.
Do you remember the day when you climbed Mount Everest, when you did with Gabby yourself? What was the day? Which day did you climb the Mount Everest recorded?
So it was the 14th of May.
14th of May.
Which, funnily enough, this year was Mother's Day, so we're not supposed to celebrate the anniversary. And we arrived at 4:30 in the morning, so for sunrise.
And the photo, oh my God, that was so beautiful. Both of your photo at the peak. Like, I was looking and I was like not cry, I had a tear on my eyes. It was like so much happy, and then the Gabby eyes, she have like so much light.
So she was just that overjoyed. To me, she looked like my baby. So your heart just floods with this emotion, and for Tandy and Pasung to get us there at the same time, we weren't expecting that. So we thought we might be passing, going up, coming down. And they timed it. So there was a point, I led going up the mountain, so I was the first to leave camp because I climbed slower than she does. And I could see all the other headlamps coming up the mountain. I'm thinking, one of two things going to happen. Either everyone's going to catch me and not get past, and I'm going to be started with the next famous queue on Everest and hold everyone up, or they're all just going to pass me and I've done all this hard work. So the first two torches that I saw come around the corner, we were resting, I think around the area at the south summit, was Tandy and Gabby, and like my heart just filled with this love of going, she's right here, and we're going to go onto the summit together. We're going to get there together. So that was amazing. A few weeks after the summit, Pasung sent me through some footage from his GoPro, and that captured the words. I would not have remembered what I said to her. And it's a bit embarrassing. The first part of my voice just goes, Gabby! Because I'm like, my baby! And then my beautiful girl, I'm just so proud. So,
Can you take us back to that moment of Nepal? What was the time like when you reached at the peak? So both of you, did you have to wait, or Gabby went there first, or you what was?
No, so we trekked up together, and she does say to me that she let me stay because I led the whole way. She said, I'll let you keep walking in front. And I do remember that exact moment of getting to the summit. It was still darkish, but you could see that dawn breaking, so you can see these colours starting to change. So it's still a deep blue, and you can see the pinks and oranges just starting to happen. And I clipped onto the safety line at the summit, and I sat down almost as if to go, now what do I do? I'm here. What do I do next? And then she arrived, and Tandy gave her a hug, he gave me a hug, and then we hugged each other. And then I kind of remember the sounds of the prayer flags, so just those 5 beautiful colours sort of flapping, and then just hugging the rest in our team, the other members of the team, and then it's almost like we were just taking as many photos and footage that you can, and sort of just looking around and going, wow, what a view, like the shadow that's cast by this massive peak across the plateau beyond.
When you're in the top, sorry Emma, I know you want to ask another question. When you're on the top, are you allowed to, is it a time kind of thing that you are allowed to stay as long as you want, or what?
You can, I think the record's something like 21 hours someone has stayed, but it's on your own safety is one thing. When we arrived, there was 4 other climbers and 7 in our team that were there. So I think we were there something from 30, 40 minutes. So we just took the photos we wanted, enjoyed the experience. When it was time to leave, my oxygen needed to be changed, so that was the job for Lapka. So He switched that over for me, and then we could see other climbers starting to approach as well, so that was sort of like a good time. And your Sherpa team are the ones who are really guiding that, because you're almost going, what is the reason? Why do we leave? Like, what stops us from just staying here? And they're like, all right, we've done half the job. We've got to get down again now. Yeah. And then the longer you stay still, you're getting colder as well. So all those sort of things start compounding. You can see others approaching and go, right, our turn is done.
Well done. That's really good. Thanks for taking us back. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, but that's so much happy moments and so much emotion when you reach at the top. But then the path is like full of danger. Like, it's like very hard.
Yes.
And you don't know like what's going to happen there.
Yeah. And I found the descent more challenging. I think that's the only time on any climb that I found more challenging than climbing. So climbing is the slower part because you're gaining altitude and you're going against gravity, you're trying to go up. Usually when you're coming down
it's harder.
It's faster, it's easier, it's quicker. But this part I found more challenging because probably plays a bit of a trick on your mind. Like, it was daylight by then. You're climbing at night by the light of a torch. So you can't see a lot around you. Coming down, you can see everything. You can see how much the mountain drops away to the side of the path. And then because we'd climbed on our own, when we turned around, we were passing those that were coming up. So there might have been about 60 other summiters on that day. So we've got to pass all them coming down. So Gabby had actually been passing them on her way up because she was one of the last to leave camp. But I think she did a lot of that passing on a lower part of the mountain where she was able to actually unclip from the lines and go up what's called the triangular face. Whereas coming down, we were passing on the summit ridge, and that's narrow and challenging, and you have to unclip. You have 2 safety lines always attached. You have to unclip one to get around the other climber, clip back on, unclip, and you've got to do that individually for every person that you pass. And you get a different reaction from everyone who you pass. Some are really helpful.
Some are like, why are you going fast?
Yeah.
They're annoyed.
Yeah, and not all of us are, like you're doing it in a tired state. We're all speaking different languages, and then we're all got to get a mask on as well. So you're not really clearly communicating with each other. Yeah.
I was just wondering because, we are talking about the descent and how many of the viewers and many of our listeners, even though we are from Nepal, we don't know what it takes to go to the Mount Everest. Like, what is the process involved? How many camps there? So would you be able to just explain?
Yes.
Even though we are from Nepal, we don't know a lot of things. Like, what does it involve? Like, how many days will it take from the base camp? Is that a base camp? What is the base camp?
You fly in Lukla and you spend 10 to 12 days hiking in just to get to the base camp. We did a smaller climb on our way in at Lobuche Mountain. That helps our bodies to acclimatise. And then we had 4 weeks living at Everest Base Camp. So in our little yellow tents, which I never imagined that that's what I would thrive on doing.
Did you say 4 weeks?
4 weeks we were there. And that was a short period. We were expecting to be there up to 6 weeks. Yeah, so we got an early summit window. And so in that time, you go into the lower parts of the icefall and do some training in the ice. And then we do what are called rotations, where we go up the mountain. So there's 4 camps on the mountain. Camp 1 is just above the Khumbu icefall. And then you've got Camp 2, which is above the Western Khum. And then you head up the Lhotse face. And Camp 3 is halfway up that face. And then Camp 4 is at the top of the Lhotse face. You go across the Geneva Spur to the South Col. So I think even before I arrived at base camp, I didn't fully know all the details of where those camps were and what they look like. I can look at a photo now and tell you what camp it is. They're all my new home now. Yeah. So the rotations involve going up to Camp 1, sleeping there. You hike up camp, touch Camp 2, come back down. You go back up, sleep at Camp 2, come all the way back down. And then you do that a second time. So you go up through the icefall, sleep at Camp 1, sleep at Camp 2, go halfway to Camp 3, come back to Camp 2, go all the way to Camp 3 and do what we say, touch it. So get there, eat a Mars bar or a snack or something, and then come make that descent all the way back down. Once you've done that, that's then your pass to know that physically you're capable, you've got the skills, and that your body, that's the main thing, your body is acclimatised to being at altitude, the low oxygen and the thin air.
Does everybody does this, or just your team
So that's
Stick
the
with
aim
it.
for everyone. So each team might have a slightly different rotation process. Some might sleep at Camp 3, some might try do it as one rotation. Some people might do some of the preparation at home in like altitude tents and do a speed ascent where they're not doing as many rotations. So that all varies within your teams. While all that's happening, the amazing mainly Nepalese people, the Sherpa teams, the high altitude workers, they are going up and down the mountain constantly. So every night while we're asleep at base camp, you see this trail of headlights going up through the icefall, and they are carrying all the supplies to set up all those camps. So, I wasn't required to carry a lot of that gear. I didn't have to carry a tent, often didn't even have to carry a sleeping bag. So I'm very open in saying that I'm a commercial climber. I'm very dependent on the Nepalese people and the others that work at the camps and do all that work for us. And they are the true heroes. They're the heroes of the Himalayas, the heroes of the mountains.
Well said, Jane.
Now, I had another one. Because I want to start from back. Like, when Gabby said, okay, we're going to start, and you're going to... Because before all this preparation, you need to do more prepare in the start. Like, what kind of training you did here before you went to Nepal.
Yeah, so we did... Like, there was a number of trips to Nepal for training. Training in Melbourne's a bit harder because we live at sea level on Bayside. So we would often go off to the Dandenongs was the main area I would go. So the 1,000 steps I know very well. I've counted them all. And then I'd often climb, keep trekking beyond, go out to Olinda, Sassafras, some of the other little towns up there. We found an altitude chamber in Melbourne, so we would do personal training in there. So a big shout out to John that was always working with us to do that. And then just general fitness, running, trying to stay fit that way.
Yeah.
And then we would go to the city and do indoor climbing as well. So we used to try to get to a climbing wall once a week. Through the sort of period, because we didn't go in 2020, a lot of that training got more challenging in the intervening years. So I felt I could have been better prepared heading away. That I didn't do as much of that climbing wall that I'd been doing in the years leading up to that. So that was the sort of the physical training that we were doing. And then we did go off and do a mountaineering course, so we did that in New Zealand. And then did a family trip where we all went to Borneo and climbed Kinabalu together, so that was fun.
Okay.
So a lot of preparation is involved, and I think probably a year or two you were already doing all these small trekkings and going into the high altitude gym and all that bit, and then going back to Nepal, staying 4 weeks in that tent, and then did that in and out rotation, and then finally So I just wanted to ask, were you guys the experienced one in your group? Like I'm not quite sure whether that's the baseline for everybody. Before climbing Mount Everest, they need to tick all the boxes, like 2 years of training and then do the rotation, or people just so up there and then...
There's no actual official guidelines on what you have to do. So to get your permit, you don't have to have demonstrated any of that. So, they keep making noises about tightening the permit structure, that maybe you have to have done 6,500 metres at least. And we got our plan, I think, just from talking to other climbers and to locals. So it was mainly the locals. And then Pasang worked alongside me for 3 years of that journey. So I did 3 summits with him. But we had others in our team who had less experience than us, and others that had more. Others that had more broad experience, so then maybe they'd been climbing elsewhere. Like if you've come from the US or Europe, they have a lot more sort of higher mountainous regions. A lot of people are aiming for there's a few different lists that you can do in climbing, like the 7 summits or the 14 peaks. So people that have done different things like that, or polar crossings where they've been to the North Pole or the Antarctic. So it was really varied, the level of experience. But we found, for Gabby and I in particular, having already been, so we climbed Choi Yu in Tibet in 2019, having already had our bodies at 8,000 metres and done a summit, so we got to 8,200, that's like the 6th highest mountain. That for us, I think, was the real thing that told us that that's the most challenging thing, is not knowing how your body will react. And a lot of the unfortunate tragedies are because of the high altitude.
And you know, like the same day you came at the peak, next day. Next day you went to the fourth largest. Gabby went to the fourth
Gabby went
largest.
to,
Yeah,
so
Gabby
I
went to
can't
fourth
take credit
largest.
for that one.
Lotsa?
Yeah,
That's,
that's
yeah.
it, yeah.
So
I
how,
think you'd say
like,
it better than I would.
like how that happened? Like, you know, like you just went up there. You have seen two dead bodies. Like how you agree? Like, okay, go.
Do
Like
that?
Yeah.
So that was a decision that had to be made a bit earlier because
Oh.
again you had to apply for a permit for it. And when we were there and we'd met Tendi and I had some conversations with him saying, look, do you think Abby's strong enough? Like, I think she is. What do you think of how she's going? And he could see that she had the aptitude and the youth on her side and strength and she prepared well for fitness. So yeah, for her to get up and do, like, I think she actually wanted to get down and just go straight back up on the same day. Yeah. And they were like, oh, you better wait for your mum just to get back to that because we had to stay at the high camp, so Camp 4 at the South Pole. So I think I just had a lot of faith in her that she was capable of doing it. And she has a lot of resilience and self-belief too.
And I have read that I think she teach you like you believe in yourself. I think something like that. Yeah, because you were like doubting on yourself, and then she was the one who was like inspiring you.
Yes. So I almost got to the high camp at Camp 4, and I found the trip because you've never done this trip from Camp 3 to Camp 4 before. And so I was like, oh, how do I now recover? Like that was a big journey. That's like getting to the summit of Choi Yu.
Yeah.
And then now I've got to only rest in the day. You don't even sleep through the night. And then wake up to then do the same thing again and even twice as hard, you know, like even higher. So I was like, oh, I don't know, Gabby's like, no one pulls out of this altitude. Of course you can do it. And, you know, it's your mind playing tricks on you. So I know physically you're capable. You know you've trained for it. That's why we're both here. And it's not just my goal. So I think I was in my head trying to go, no one will notice if I don't do it. You're going for the goal of the youngest Australian. No one's watching me. And she was the one that said, no, we're here to do it together.
Yeah.
That's a plan from before.
Yeah. And I think that trip also bring you two very close.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. So, it's a lovely relationship. It's a hard thing. I mean, in my head, I know what things will top it because I know the most important thing in my life is actually having, you know, the blessing of having my 4 kids. I try to think what would top, but then I've got 4 kids that do such diverse things that I know there's other things in store that I don't even know yet.
So I just want to ask, sorry.
I was about to say Jane hasn't touched her Chiya, so I just want her to touch the Chiya and just see whether she gets a bit of Nepalese flavor or not.
Because we're so focused on Gabby and you today, but I just want to ask, like, what's the other kid's dream? Like, three of other kids, like.
Yeah, I don't know what their other dreams are. So my oldest one's finished uni and he's just started working this year, and he lives up in Queensland, and he'd actually went to Nepal when he was 15 with school, so I think that was possibly part of what inspired us. And then Joe's an interesting one because when I said to him after the first trip with Gab, I said, oh, how about we go off and maybe we could code a trail or something like that together, and he said, oh, I think I'd rather just do up a car. So he bought himself an old MG body and spent a couple of years tinkering with that we used to have a basement in our home. So he's still got that. He's bought a new car since because he's 18 now. But yeah, that was what his goal was. He had no interest in. So we have done some family trips together, and I think altitude doesn't suit him anyway. So yeah, he's loving his MG at the moment. Shiny red car. And Anna, we don't know what she's got in store for us.
Well done. I think, they have got a bit of higher benchmark.
Yeah.
No
Like,
pressure.
in fact, the enjoyment I've had with Anna this week was because the FIFA World Cup is on. Her hobby's just playing. She plays soccer. So she's in a women's team.
Love soccer.
So we've gone along and watched quite a few of the games that have been on. So, and then we had some skiing together in New Zealand. So she's... I wouldn't be surprised if she's my next Daredevil, but she's got a bit of a streak in her too.
Yeah. Okay. So you're expecting a bit of surprise from her.
Wait to see with that one.
Then what was your challenging part when you think about Mount Everest and climbing? Like, I know there's a physical, challenge in itself, but there was emotional too. Like, there was a bit of responsibility as a mom. Like, you were trying to achieve something
Yeah.
nobody have achieved in their family. Plus, you are also guiding or be guided by Gabby, like, you
Yeah.
know. So, what was more challenging for you physically and emotionally? Can you think of any challenges?
Yeah, I emotionally I did find it hard. So saying goodbye to my kids when I left Australia, that was really hard. And just overcoming, like we'd come through a few really challenging years as a family, so that was still playing on me while I was there. And so you really have to put your emotional baggage away to be able to focus on what you're doing, and that took me some work to try and pack that away. Yeah. But one of the things I did was I actually climbed with a message, and I found that gave me emotional strength when I needed that to go, all right, I've got something that I want to get to the summit and show. Physically, I knew that we trained and we were capable, and it was just on those days. You sort of had good days and bad days. So some days you would climb well and you go, yeah, I've got this. And then other times it would be like, oh, I did this just like 2 days ago and I'm slower today. And then you'd wake up the next day and go, all right, I've got my mojo again, and it's come back. So I think that is all part of your body adapting to the extreme environment it's in, and just trying to get enough rest as well, because you're sleeping at the lowest that we would ever sleep would be 5,300 metres, which is high altitude on its own. So a lot of people can come across problems just getting to base camp. Just getting to Camp 1 at 6,000 metres. So, you're not even getting the normal rest that you would get at home in bed. Yeah.
That's really nice. Now, you have touched about the message. Like, tell me about this, teach us consent. So that was the message you took at the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
Can you, explain a bit about that? Like, what does that message entails, and why is it necessary, and why you thought that message need to be brought
up to the top? Yeah. So it's a campaign that was started by a young woman, Chanel Contos, and she just wants to bring the message of consent and have it embedded within the school curriculum so that it's age appropriate and kids are learning at an younger age, both boys and girls, or everyone, are learning just the language of consent to start with, how to speak to one another, starting at really young, so it doesn't need to be even about sexual consent, just consent around your own body.
Yeah.
And that also, it protects children from harm if they've got an understanding of their body and the language around it. And then, teens as they get to know each other and through into adulthood. So I have 2 boys and 2 girls. So I sort of think about, I want all 4 of my children, I want all the people in my life to be treating other people with respect and care. And I found even just getting involved in the social media campaign and looking at the teachers' consent Instagram, like I tell people, log on to it, have a look, read through all the posts that are there. There's so much language that you can learn around. So, I grew up knowing that there's a couple of trauma responses of fight or flight. We think of the caveman days where we either fight or run. And then there's the freeze response, so you're the one where you just stand still, freeze. And then there's a 4th response, which is fawning, where you need to be kind to survivors and you need to keep being, kind to whether it's your perpetrator or those around you, or in a situation that might be fearful, you've just got to act with kindness and be nice, I didn't even know that existed, that it was such a thing. Yeah. So there's a lot of language we can learn about. And I've noticed that you've touched on podcasts where you've spoken about, domestic violence, family violence, that all of that language overlaps. And I think the younger we can empower young women with having the right language and understanding how to keep themselves safe, but also that, young men can know what their expectations are and understanding what people want and having the conversations. It's easier to get an enthusiastic yes from someone than down the track to have done something that where maybe someone's been harmed.
Well done. Well done for taking the message. Yep.
So you have also done the volunteer with the ASRC? No, what's the refugee women and taught the English.
Yeah, so I'm part of a school called the River Nile School. So it was lovely actually to have their flag on my tent at base camp for the whole time. And I climbed with an Egyptian woman, so the first Egyptian woman to summit, and she was sort of like, why have we got River Nile written on your tent? So it's a school for refugee and asylum seeker women. So I've spent many years involved as a tutor on site there, so as a volunteer tutor, and now I'm part of their governance, so I chair the board for the school. So it's a really rewarding thing to be involved in, and knowing that the difference it makes to women's lives when you embed education and having a language in the country that you're living in, and leading to not just work but meaningful work for women, and that everyone benefits. So it's not just the women getting it, but their children, their families, their community. Yeah.
Okay, so I just like, I know you're looking. Okay, so, because that was a Gabby dream to go to the Mount Everest. But after that, you realize that you want to be a mountaineer. Like, you have climbed after that without Gabby. Yeah, isn't it? So can you tell us about that? Like, where you've been, like, which you've been to New Zealand last
so I just
week?
went to New Zealand in July, just to explore a little bit closer to home. And then just to get other skills. So the skills that we gained over there were mainly on fixed line type climbing. So I wanted to do a little bit more independent climbing and try some ice climbing, so using different tools, different skills. So there's never a point, I don't think, where you know it all.
I know I have asked already off camera, but then, like, what's the difference between ice climbing and the Mount Everest, like, the Himalayas?
Yeah, so the climbing we were doing there, we were on a fixed line. So not all the mountaineering I've done has been on fixed lines, but that one particularly is. So the Sherpa teams and the icefall doctors, as they're known, go through and fix a line that goes across the whole route through the icefall and up the steep sections on the mountain. And so you're climbing with a device called a Jumar. So it's a device that you hold in your hand, or an ascender, is the other word for it, and it ascends up the rope, but it locks so that it can't come down. So that's your sort of locking onto the line, but it's also the thing that's pulling, that you're using to pull your body up. So the other types of climbing, what I would like to get involved in, is using your ice tools. So you're actually using your hands independently. So you'll still be using harnesses and rope and having anchors, so you fix anchors into the ice. So some of the training that we did in the icefall was, teaching Gabby and I how to fix anchors into ice. We didn't need to use them, but it's every extra step like that you get keeps you safer. So there's never a guarantee that everything goes to plan. So the more technical skills we've got, so if anything was to happen to our team, you'd like to think that all of us in the team have got the skills to be able to assist each other as well. So I constantly want to keep broadening my skills, because knowing that I've come to this at a pretty short time frame. So Tendi and Pasang have been working 10, 20 years at their craft. So if I'm here, they're like,
they're up there.
I'm down at sea level and they're at Mount Everest in terms of where our skills
You seem very close with them, like, with Pasang and
Tendi. And the other three I still chat. I mean, that's the joy of social media, as much as we don't like some elements of it. I stayed in touch with Lapka, Namgil and Kushung as well. One of them became a father recently, so all those sort of things bring joy. But I think the people that you meet in life are more of a reward than any summit. Like, I will always say, having my children is a much more joyous and rewarding experience than climbing a mountain. Gabby often talks about Choi Yu as being a more fulfilling mountain. And, for different reasons, again, for doing that one. But, I think as I first went to Nepal in my 20s.
That was my question. Is it accident? Was that a planned visit or accidental visit to Nepal?
I was in the middle
when was this?
In the middle of my art studies, actually. So I was studying art for 2 years and knew that I had that whole 2-month Christmas break. And I was trying to work out, I have a fascination with Asia, Southeast Asia and Asian countries. So I'd always wanted to try get to Tibet as well, and I tried coming across from China a year earlier, across the Tibetan plateau from Chengdu. So I was looking at other ways. Maybe I'll come from Mongolia. And my sister was selected to race in India, in Pune, just outside of Mumbai. So I went, all right, I'll go to India, and then I'll go up onto Nepal. So while I was there, I kind of made a beeline at the race, had a chat to the Nepalese team, thinking that, we'll just catch up for dinner or lunch or something while I'm in in Nepal, and I spent the next 2 months with their family.
Wow.
Yeah, so they invited me into their home. So Meena, so it was Durga and Meena, and they had 2 young children. And the fact that she was a similar age to me with 2 young children, and invited me into her home to stay with them. Durga took me back to his village, Dabella, so I meant to look up where it is.
Yeah, no, you know what? I've never heard that village, and probably you haven't.
Which village?
Dabella.
No.
No, okay. There was few comments saying is it near to Pokhara?
No, so the opposite direction.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
and I did discover in my journals I noted, because I was keeping a journal while I was there all those years ago. Oh, we caught a bus to this town, or we hiked up to that town, and I should have brought that along with me. But I'm actually in touch with the family, so.
So that happened many moons
That
ago
was
in
the
Dabella,
90s.
in village in the
Yeah.
90s. Okay.
Yeah,
Do you
so the
still are in
mid-90s.
contact with the family?
Yes,
With
well,
a
we
bit of
reconnected
yeah.
afterwards. So I thought after Gabby and I climbed Choyu, part of the ceremony that you do before you climb is you have a puja ceremony.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to me, you do it for other things
Yes.
other than climbing. Yeah. And so we had a puja ceremony done in Tibet at the base of Choyu. And when we got home, a whole lot of what you might class as coincidences began to happen in my life. So I got a Facebook request from the family I'd known way back in the 90s. Now, I tried looking for them when I'd gone back, but it was like looking for the little house in Up. If you know that movie, everything is grown.
Lion? What is the movie called? Where the Indian guy.
Yeah. So
yes,
I
yes.
knew that every day I would catch a bus or a taxi out to their home, and I'd get off at Kalunki Choke. I knew Choke went roundabout. So I'd do that, and I'd get off at Kalunki Choke, and I've got photos of them, and I'm wandering around going, do you know this family? I walked across a little boardwalk on a little cottage garden, and it was still building.
Yeah,
So it had changed so
now.
much.
Yeah.
So each journey I did back, I went, I can't find
So
them.
you were trying.
I was trying
so
to find
just to
them.
get it right. So you met this family in 90s,
Yes.
and you were trying to get in contact, but there was
So I
no
went
connection
back
at all.
I went back in 2018, so this is 22 years later.
Wow,
Trying to
and
find them.
28,
Couldn't
okay.
find them, and went. I tried, and then after Choyu, they found me. And I assumed they'd seen us in the press because Gabby got a little bit of press after doing in the media locally. And then they looked it up and went, oh, no, we didn't know that. And then they'd also seen stuff because my son had a bit of an obscure thing happen where he was in the sort of global press and they said, oh, we even saw your son like 5 years ago in the news. It's so funny that you're related. And then in the same week I had, my dad used to have this little green truck that he drove around for business when I was a kid. He sold that when I was still a teenager, I think. And I'm driving through my suburb at home and there is my dad's truck. And so I kind of chatted to the owner of it and he said, oh, I'd love, I collect, it's an old Bedford. Oh, I remember buying it off Alistair, your dad.
So where did you locate this? Like you're just driving in the beside and then...
Yeah, just down the street, 2K from my house.
What a coincidence.
Yeah. And then beyond that, I went into the Riverina school, so not long after that, and we had a few students who were Tibetan.
Yeah.
And so I thought I would actually, being refugees, some of them had never even been in Tibet. They'd been born outside. So I thought, if it's okay, I'll bring a few small gifts home for them, because usually I wouldn't bring gifts to isolate certain students. So I brought home some prayer beads and gave them to them after class one day with some photos. And just said, I bought some photos and I'll put the prayer beads as part of the puja ceremony, and they've touched the Chandra. And a week later they came in and said, oh, my dad told me that the Lama who blessed you in the ceremony is his cousin.
No way!
So I have this spiritual connection with this ceremony that we had. So when we were
having a goosebump.
before we climbed Everest, I think that puja made me believe that as long as we do what will keep us safe, the mountain hopefully will.
Wow, that's such a good.
Yeah.
This story will remain with me for my life because that's really, it's not just a coincidence, but everything happened after puja, but all these meaningful event in your life and then some stories just came back connecting to each other. But, that's really,
And
really
they're all
heartwarming.
connected with people.
Yeah.
There's people
Yeah.
that makes your life.
Yeah,
Yes.
well done. Now, I was about to ask, but what are the cultural thing you learned, like as you went up in the mountain? Because I'm from Nepal, but I come from Tarai part, and there is a Tarai mountain and all that bit. So, is there any there is a puja ceremony you learned about? Is there any other things you were like, oh, they do that too? Like, was there any cultural things you're just like,
Cultural
oh?
things. I do know that I should know what all the colours of the flag,
Oh.
the 5 colours are.
I don't
He
know.
don't-
I don't know. Can you please try and Emma, can you correct?
And they're always a bit different to what I think they should
There is
be.
no
So
yes
it's-
and no answer. I'm writing as you speak.
Yeah, so it's green, red. I'm pretty sure red is
Yeah.
fire.
Yes.
Is that right?
Right.
Yeah, there's earth, there's water. It's either ice or sky.
I don't know.
and
Is that
air,
there's
and I
fire?
think air
Yeah,
as
fire.
an element.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's what I should know. I've asked so many times and I forget. We've been there when different ceremonies have been on. I'm not very good at remembering the names of all of them. And we were there for a New Year's Eve one year, I think maybe when we did Choyu, when we were leaving. Oh, no, it might have been because it was either April or September. So April is probably more the your New Year, which is different to ours. So that's when we worked out that even that your calendar is different. to
Yes.
The Western calendar.
Oh.
Yeah.
So,
we-
our New Year is in
we
April.
can change how
Yeah.
old or young we are, can't
Yeah.
we? Depending on which age.
Which is,
And there is
Yeah.
different. Again, Chinese New Year, the Buddhist New Year is different again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the Sherpas a bit, because we have talked about Tendi and Pasang.
I just want to say one thing. So, because we're talking about the cultural things, but how was the language? Language barrier.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
all the teams that we work with do have very good English.
Okay.
So I keep intending to learn more language. And in fact, in the night, when I was first there, when I met Mina again, it's like language came back to me. So I remember there's 2 words I always remember that she constantly said, which was dinos and linos. So as she was feeding me, take it, give me back.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw her, I went, oh, I
Get
remember
back.
those
Yeah.
words. Yeah. So I had more language then, simply because I needed to be able to ask, where is the toilet, chicken, eggs, things like that. Yeah, I had that much language. Now I don't need to use it because everyone speaks English with us. Yeah, I keep trying to find ways, and so one day I'm going to get it. So if I do go back to maybe teach English, which is what I'd love to do, the proviso is that they teach me Nepalese.
And I think you are a fast learner.
I should have it by now.
No, but you had a different priority back then, so now, so we'll probably now Tendi, and we are talking about Pasang and few others. Like how long do you know them? Like how did you get connected, and what was their role, and did you feel like they were motivating you? There was a role from Sherpas to motivate you too, because I think I have heard a couple of your podcasts and others too, and there was a bit of sentence provided where Pasang or Tendi kind of suggested, Gabby, you can do it. That was for your daughter. You can do it. You should do it. So there was a bit of motivating word. So I just wanted to know what role they play when you're up there, because they are their friends, and they are your guides too. So just can you please explain a bit about that too?
Yeah.
Please?
So they're employed as our guides. So we are a client, and their role is to guide us, keep us safe. I'm always very cognizant of the fact that that they need to stay safe as well. So I used to worry about if you've got a cerebral edema where you are hallucinating and that you're not. Often people don't want to turn around. You get a bit of summit fever. That would probably be my biggest fear, that I would put my team in danger ever. So Pasang I met back in 2019, so we were going to do Mount Brunsi, and that was the one where we didn't get the lines fixed on that. So that was our first experience of not first experience. It was a good experience of not getting a summit, so knowing that you could turn around and say, we won't go at all costs, we won't put them in danger, in saying, no, we paid you to take us, you have to fix the lines, because we're here, we have to get it done. And then we stayed in touch beyond that. So he then went on and did a successful summit of Everest that season. and I contacted those that he'd been, because we camped for a few days at base camp, so I contacted those that he'd climbed with. He had great clients, Saoud, and some others in the team. That wonderful woman, French woman, Oriane, who also got to know him. And yeah, it's all through all that communication that you work out who's the team that you want to work with. So I brought him to then do Chiya with us, and then brought him across to do Everest, and then I'd been back on another trip in between those trips, just to do some extra training with him. And then through the period where we weren't climbing, where we're all sort of just still in touch remotely, his kids and I got in this little habit where they would send images of drawings that they were doing, and because I paint, I would turn them into a watercolour and send the image back to them. So we were painting these same paintings together. So they were sending images me to the is it the kukra, the nut kukri?
Yeah, kukri.
Yeah. So I did some paintings of that, and ducks and chickens and penguins and cars, flowers. Yeah, it was good fun.
The relationship is going strong. Yeah. I also want to ask you, probably we are at the end of the podcast anyway, I just wanted to ask you, how do you see your love for Nepal? Like, I know there's a Mount Everest, you climb, gone back, been in, all these Sherpas, you are in constant touch with, you have got a family there, second home, I guess. What's your love for Nepal? When people talk to you about Nepal, or when you think about Nepal, what do you see?
Yeah, I do have a strong bond with the country, and I think what happens is a lot of people, when they have been there, it stays with them, because it's everyone's still human, so there's good and bad everywhere, but you see a happiness and a friendliness amongst people. So Gabby's now involved in the Australian Himalayan Foundation, so that's something that I would love to get a link where we can still be helping the country, because they've given us so much. I mean, we invest a lot. It's an expensive pastime to be doing, so a lot of our money is sunk in and hopefully going to the people that are working for us and with us. But yeah, to be able to go back and be teaching English or staying in a village. Who knows if I could ever find Bella again. I'll have to talk to. So little Subam, who was a 7-year-old when I went, is an adult, living and studying it. I think he's doing his PhD in Helsinki somewhere. Hopefully I'm allowed to share that information. Okay. Cool. Coming from a village that didn't even have power or electricity for his grandfather, never spoke English. Yeah. So it's wonderful to see the difference education makes and the progress that can be made. But yeah, I do know it's a country that faces a lot of challenges. And I think when we keep those things in the forefront of our mind, that you're not just going to trek in, trek out. There's more that you can do. So a lot of the supporters of the Australian Himalayan Foundation are people who have been there, and once they've returned, still want to keep giving back. Yeah.
Nicely said. Now,
I just want to talk about Australian Himalayan Foundation. What is that? Like who founded that?
So it was founded by a group of the sort of earliest Australian mountaineers 20 years ago. So it was a group of about 6 of them that just wanted to give back. So it was a very grassroots, small organisation, and it's grown now to the 3 main pillars that they support are education, healthcare, and then the environment. Okay. Yeah. So the fundraising is all done within Australia and across Australia. They had a challenge early this year, which I really thrived on doing. Where we were challenging the Kiwis in New Zealand. So there's a Himalayan Trust over there. And then even the families of Sir Edmund Hillary, the first Summitir, and Tenzing Norgay Sherpa, they're quite actively involved still in both organisations. So the challenge, which I'll be on again next year if anyone's keen, is in March to track the vertical metres that you climb in a month. So does that make sense to you?
No.
So as you're training, instead of working out how long you train for, like how many minutes or hours, or how many kilometres you travelled, is to measure how vertical you've climbed. So I headed off to my steepest, hilliest trails that I knew, and I turned my app on, and my goal was to get to 8848 in that month. So I dedicated a lot of time to it, and I ticked over, and coincidentally I got to 8888.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, but it was hard, and that was actually, that month of training was exact same training that I'd done the year earlier in the month leading up to leaving for Everest. So that's why I knew I could do it. Yeah, so it's activities like that. They had a gala dinner last year. There was a number of dinners to celebrate Everest Day in May this year. So yeah, if you watch my socials, anytime there's anything on that they've got a campaign or a function or event, I'll always be posting about it.
You are. Now, what's next for Jane? What's the one of the things I know about you, but I want you to tell us, like, what is exactly in your to-do list? Like, this is what I want to do.
Okay. Well, I often preface it by saying, I'm going to go back to another weird, silly story. Yes. When I turned 45, the morning I woke up and I went, oh, goodness, I'm halfway to 50. That's so old. And then I changed my mindset and I went, no, I'm halfway through life. I'm going to live till I'm 90. I'm halfway through life. Now I've got to live to 106 because I'm 53 now, and I'm still only halfway through life. Yeah, so there's a lot left. Because I paint, I would love to explore a lot more of what I can do with my artwork and my painting. So I've got an artwork underway at the moment. I'd love to continue working in education. So I actually work in a primary school now. So the ability that I'd have to go into, to be working in other countries, I just have a lot more knowledge than I would have had a few years ago to be able to work as a volunteer tutoring. Want to keep climbing, but my two younger kids have got to get through school as well, so I've got a couple of years to get them through school.
And then, okay, cool, no problem.
And then one day I'll be that skydiving, mountaineering, motorbike riding, scuba diving grandma.
And
I'm like, Nana, are you free to babysit? Let me check the diary. I think I'll be home. Yeah, there's a bit of a vicious adventurous streak.
I've heard or read somewhere that you also wanted to do, I don't know what it is called, I forgot the terminology, where the high-rise building and the window cleaning. Yeah. So that is in your bucket list.
That is on my bucket list. So I did the training for it.
What did it call? Is that a high?
It's called, IRADA was the name of the training. It's industrial abseiling, so you can do more than just cleaning windows. You can a million different trades. So often people go into it when they've already got a trade. I don't have a trade. I can paint. I'm happy to paint murals and things. Yeah, so I just assumed I'd rock up with my CV and I've got Everest on it. I've done the training, but there's a little bit more experience involved in that. So if you do have any of your listeners who have a business. But the flip side of that is in Gabby dragging me up Everest to fulfil her goal, she now has work as a high-rise window cleaner, fulfilling my goal. So she's now working in that area. So she went off and did the training and got some work. So that might happen, but otherwise it's just a nice hobby to get back and keep training and meeting the others that do it. And painting and there's a lot of things there on the list, so I won't. Let it be surprised, probably, it's going to come. Who knows, 3 or 4 years down the track, I'll see you again in another podcast, doing another milestone. The youngest one might drag me off on a completely different tangent, so I'm a little bit of a chameleon too. So. Wait for the time. Emma, do you want to add anything?
I just want to talk about the painting, like portrait painting. It's so beautiful. Have you seen?
I haven't actually.
In the Instagram. Also, you sell in a blue thumb.
Yes, Blue Thumb. I have my artwork on Blue Thumb.
Yes. So the portrait is like the puja. Yes. This one I said before because I was so much inspired by you and Gabby. Yeah. So how you get the climbing you get from Gabby, but the painting, did you had these painting things from your childhood?
I think I've always had a love of art. And it's something inside me knows that I love painting faces and humans and people. Yeah. So it's not a very commercial endeavour. So I did my first entry in the Archibald, so that's sort of always been a childhood dream to. So I entered. I wasn't selected. Entering is the hardest part. The rest is up to the judges. And that was a painting of Pasang. So Pasang and I at Choyu. So I'm working on another artwork at the moment focused on women in sport. So so that's something nice. I've got happening. But otherwise, when I travel, I just often people don't like to if I sit there drawing them. So I'll often work from a photograph nowadays. But when I used to travel independently as a backpacker, that would be the thing I would do because if I didn't have the language. I would just sit there and draw what I could see, and people would gather around me, and I'd just start painting and drawing faces.
Yeah.
So, yeah, hopefully I'm improving.
But you were the medalist, like, what's that, finalist for 2018, 19, 20, like, yeah.
So that was in another portrait prize. So it's a gallery down in Mornington called the Southern Boy Studios. Yeah, so so when I look at the entries that are in that competition now, I know that in their inaugural competition, when they had their first portrait prize, I was the highly commended. And I look at the calibre of artists that are part of that. Yeah, that's something that I'm particularly proud of as well. So you reminded me of that one.
You're multi-talented.
So I come and go from
different hats.
Yeah.
We really want to thank you, Jane, for coming again. I think probably we can write in our resume, like, we have closely spoken with someone who have climbed Mount Everest.
Yes.
I don't think we have ever met someone who have climbed Mount Everest, but that's and also providing that experience of how surreal it was for you and you know, Gabby to be up there. So we really thank you for your time here, and then providing our viewers and listeners your experience of climbing Mount Everest and your love for Nepal and the relationship you have built over the years.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
I want to add one thing. You know, like, anywhere we go, like, even though when we came here, the first thing when we said, like, we are from Nepal, everybody thinks that we climb Mount Everest. We live in a mountain. You know, like, but we can say, like, oh, like, we don't live in a mountain, but we have interviewed you. We have talked to you.
Well, I'll have to admit, I haven't climbed Mount Kosciuszko.
That's true. Yeah. But, you know, that's the people thing. Like, you know, myth is like, Nepal is all mountain. Like, you know, that first question, I don't know, that's what I get asked every time. It's like, oh, this, like, winter is nothing for you because you have Mount Everest.
That's not true. That's not true. But now we can say we have spoken to someone who climbed Mount Everest.
Yeah.
Okay. And they know what's involved. It might set you on the path.
Yes, that's right.
Anyone can do it, I think.
Yes.
So, don't think too soon, I always say. Got a long life, hopefully.
Yeah.
You're such a good motivator too. Before you go, Jane, do you want to ask? Do you want to add anything to our listeners and viewers? Bit of motivating, you know, tips kind of stuff, like what they can and can't do in their life, probably.
Oh no, I think you find your own goal. So it doesn't have to be a mountain. Yeah. And it's whatever satisfies your own heart. So that's what you should be pursuing. And it doesn't have to be, you know. Sometimes we always think we need to monetize everything. So sometimes you can just do stuff just because you love it. Yeah. And so that's what my painting is for me.
Yeah,
that's just beautifully said. Monetizing.
Sometimes the best paintings I do are the ones that I just give away because I've done because I love them.
Well done. Well done. You're such a social worker.
Oh.
By saying that, we would really like to thank you, everyone, for listening and viewing. We have been really good last couple of weeks. We have got a increased number of viewers and listeners together. So यति भन्दै आजको पोडकास्ट हामी यही सकाउन चाहन्छौँ. धन्यवाद सबैजनालाई. Thank you.
Thank you.
Namaste.